Yeah? You called? Fuckers. What's up? What can I do for you? Oh god. I'm trying to think of what I want to do first. I got so much to do. I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm probably going to... I think I'm leaving at like 4 in the morning to the airport because it's such an early flight. Oh god. Did you get your package? I did. For some... Oh god. This is the fucking... Because I live on a crossroads. And the fucking problem is that when I got a delivery, the guy was like... They gave me a window, 3:30 to 4 to 4:30, and they say, yeah, we're one stop away. So I see them, see the fucking van drive past, and then they go around this whole area, this whole block, I guess you'd call it in America, and they come back up. I'm watching them on the map. They go way past me, round to another place, and they basically just do an entire fucking figure around every corner of my house and every street and every turn. And then they eventually come here at like 4:35. And I'm like, shit. They literally just did, I don't know what they were literally just playing fucking Pac-Man with my house. It was so weird. Actually, so freaked. But it arrived. Watch the Blinken testimony live. It's crazy. Is it crazy, chat? Is it really? Blinken. I don't even... I suppose we could. I feel like I also have a little... I didn't realize how far this goes. I've got a whole presentation to do on this Greater Israel bullshit. I wonder if Ben Shapiro's ever spoken about it. I think he has. We haven't done Ben Shapiro in a while. Is it still his comprehensive history is the big thing? Yeah. I've seen him debate this as well. When does he mention it here, though?
History of the Israeli-Palestinian-Arab conflict. In order to discuss that history, we have to go back in time, like way
back in time. Okay, don't care. Don't care.
So they begin restricting land transfers to Jews. In 19 turns out the Ottoman Empire, this entire time from 1517 to 1918 until the end of World War I. During that time, they really didn't want Jews settling in the land, and so they had barred Jewish land purchase. You actually could not buy land in this area if you were Jewish.
But you kind of could.
Jews started to make sort of...
We watched this forever ago. Yeah, there's one bit here that I feel like I remember that is relevant to today's conversation.
Deals with local Arabs to buy their land. And so you start seeing Jews trying to escape various places from which they've been exiled for, thousands of years, back to the Holy Land. There was a constant Jewish presence here. Throughout all of these exiles, there's never no presence of Jews, but
obviously.
A spiritual rising the table. And it's mostly Russians. It's
First
the idea
Aliyah,
of the
movement
World
begins.
Fair was
Okay.
basically too strong a threat. The Jews need some homeland to call their own. In 1917, Britain declares the Balfour Declaration. This says there will be a Jewish homeland in the area of Israel. The amount of land that was promised to the Jews was actually not just what is labeled Israel here, but also Jordan, which at this time was called Transjordan. Which makes some sense in the sense that the Arab state...
That's good. That's what we need. That's what I needed to know. Okay, good. It's such bullshit. We've done our digging. It is absolute horseshit. Okay, we'll do that later, though. Woke. Fuck. History with Jenny Babiro. Yeah, that is. I can't believe I didn't know the details of just how wrong that was, though. It's so wrong. God. Anyway, I don't fucking know. I also just ended up reading some really fucking long Hebrew translated document about the Dahia doctrine and about how the guy who said, we're going to punish the population, just felt like he got massively misquoted in the press and by the Goldstone report. I'm like, fuck, how many of these things do I have to go through? You can thank me for correcting you. Did you correct me? I thought I was reading the thing about that David sent me. I was not convinced. I don't know. But I guess we did dig deeper. We knew what to look for, thanks to old Sundowner. You can trust almost literally nothing. I suppose so. The original coverage of Superior Videos was my first intro to your content. Feel like I'm in a different sphere of understanding since back then. That's cool. Nice one. Based. Yeah, I don't know. We'll do that. We're gonna do a whole bit about like the Irgun maps and Ben Shapiro saying that, because I think it actually does matter now, because I think probably more than ever I'm hearing Israelis talking about how like fucking Palestine should just be Jordan, like that's what it should be. But it's based. If I can at least expose the historical inaccuracy that concept is based on, that would probably be quite useful. How is he misquoted? Because he's talking about how the guy who was the general at that time is talking about how he believes that Hezbollah and Hamas, both of them, utilize civilian infrastructure to the point that if you're going to strike them, the rest of the world is going to inevitably look at you like you are attacking disproportionately, because because you have to hit civilian areas to hit the militant areas because they're the same thing. And he even talks about like they're firing rockets from civilian houses and shit like this. And one of the incidental outcomes of that, they say, is that it's once they strike Hezbollah in a large enough capacity, it will force them to very carefully reconsider ever doing it again. Which is ultimately what happened, right? The whole Lebanese fucking narrative right now, or ever since 2006, was, oh, yeah, you know, we did make them look kind of silly with the tunnels and the intercepting communications, and they didn't achieve any of their military objectives and all this shit. But, oh God, that was horrible. Let's never do that again. That's like the Lebanese sentiment on fucking Hezbollah going to war with Israel. And then Hezbollah, who were quite frequently harassing Israel with rockets and border crossings and shit like that from 2000 to 2006, they more or less stopped between 2006 till 2010, 11, 12, right? And then later on, they just seem to be more interested in grabbing fucking control over parts of Syria. So yeah, but it's a Hebrew translation, but I can go and look into it as well, because this was the general who was in the Northern Command. This is his paragraph. In my position as commander of the Northern Command, I held only one interview over a year ago in which I talked about the possibility that if a war breaks out, we will attack Hezbollah with a disproportionate attack. This interview was included in the Goldstone report with an accompanying letter stating that it was a preconceived idea to attack the population with a disproportionate attack in order to punish it. And this despite the fact that the idea I was aiming for was to attack in order to seriously harm Hezbollah and not civilians. The method of operation in Lebanon was that, in the first stage, they attack the targets that have an immediate threat. In the second step, evacuate the population for its protection, and only after the evacuation of the population attack Hezbollah targets with a broad attack. I am convinced that this pattern is a moral pattern, that it was right to act in, and if we are called upon for another campaign, it would be right to act in the same way. It is Hezbollah that is turning the hundreds of villages and Shiite areas in Lebanon into fighting areas. I hope this understanding will make the organization think carefully before it decides to use more terrorism, kidnapping, and shooting against us. This is kind of like, but people like utilize the Dahia doctrine or the quotes from this same person in that one interview in the press to make it sound like the plan was to like deliberately wreck civilian infrastructure as a way to punish the entire population. Like that was the goal. Like that's the first principle, and it just doesn't make sense compared to. I think there's actually they did inflict a fuck ton of damage because, like, I think one of the reasons that the recession initially in 2007-8 didn't affect Lebanon as much as surrounding areas was because they couldn't stop working. They had like a massive building program, so they'd invested so much in rebuilding the city and rebuilding the country that like you couldn't just have people lose their jobs, so they just kept on chugging. Like they had a at least that was what I heard from like one Lebanese fucking analyst. But if you're talking about, I think when they initially they knew where Nasrallah's apartment was and where he was operating from, but I think they gave like a, and they're talking in here in part about how they regretted having a fucking having a warning before they struck it because there were too many civilians around, and that's how Nasrallah got away. Or like they maybe could have killed him. They maybe could have killed him in this war, but they didn't because they blamed the warning. At least I don't know the full details, but they say here. The dilemma arose again on the second day of fighting regarding the attack on two important targets in the capital, Nasrallah's office building and the building containing Nasrallah's apartment. It was possible to attack these two structures by surprise with a reasonable chance of hitting him. All the residents of the surrounding area, the security square, were required by means of announcements to evacuate the area. Only after 18 hours did we attack these two buildings. In my opinion, this testifies to the morality of the idea. So, I don't know, I might read through this whole thing. Incidentally, this thing was so getting bombed is good for the economy. It's like a post-World War II thing as well, wasn't it? Like the economic growth after rebuilding London and shit. Yeah. What page number is this? I'm trying to review the translation. 31. No, 29 on the actual thing. Do you know which document I'm talking about? It's funny because this was actually sent to me by someone who was trying to say that I was wrong about Dahia. So, oh god. But it's a bunch of different articles by different military analysts or like former generals and shit like that. Yeah. Linked on Wikipedia. Okay. Yeah. It's also the meaning of disproportionate because disproportionate in law means you commit a crime, right? Like your military advantage is not as high as the civilian casualties. Like, but it can also mean like a military destroys one of your tanks and you destroy 500 of their tanks. That's disproportionate, but it's not illegal. Anyway. Has he gone over the Benny Morris critique? No. Actually, I wonder what you think about it, Jesse Irwin. It's about one line in Righteous Victims where he says that in 1920 at San Remo, Palestine included Transjordan. I don't think that's true, though. And I think it's actually very clear that it's not true based on what people were talking about afterwards and what was happening afterwards. Ugh. Have you seen any of President Sunday's dumb hit pieces about you? Nope. It's funny because like when President Sunday reviews my stuff, like especially my Twitter threads and my stuff about like blockade and stuff like that, at least and if he reviews my video on the Great March of Return, at the very least, he's getting his fans are getting new information like that they wouldn't have got otherwise. So I'm okay with that. They have to absorb it somehow. How many is he done now? It's all just so boring that like it's just like moral grandstanding, like low information, high vocabulary. Like fuck me. Well, oh well, he got his whatever accumulative 7,000 views or whatever the fuck. Well done, boy. God, I'm actually a hot topic on his channel though. See, no one gives a fuck. Keffels, okay, no one gives a fuck about this stuff. They care when it's about me though, and Vosh. Okay. But it's okay. He can, again, when it's the attention economy, like when your only capital is attention, just not my fucking problem. Lonerbox brings in the viewers. I know, eh? Highly contentious figure. It is true. This is a fact. Straight fact. Fuck. Why is it the two famous Hassans are both idiots? Who's the other famous Hassan? Eh? There's more than one famous Hassan? What, Nasrallah? Nasrallah's not an idiot. Oh, Mehdi. He's not really he's a different kind of Hassan, though. No, I don't think Mehdi Hassan is dumb. He's partisan, but he's not dumb. He's very good at what he does, actually. I would never lump those two in the same box. Have you seen the Crazy History Speaks tweets? What, all of them? No. I muted him before we even had a debate because he just he wouldn't stop fucking atting me with random shit that had nothing to do with me. Like, no, that guy's insane. That guy is, which is a shame because he clearly has like some level of knowledge that is above most people's, I think. It's just he's mental and he seriously lacks like critical thinking skills. Ooh. Did you read the ICRC document about belligerent occupying forces? Which one? Eh? Which one? The one about, I don't know if they did a separate document on it. Or I'm sure they would. I just don't know if I've seen a dedicated one. I've seen them mention belligerent occupying. Yeah. Would it be fair to call Owen Jones the British Hassan? Maybe. I feel like Owen Jones is more intelligent than Hassan as well, but I don't fucking know. Owen's weird, man. Owen Jones has given me the vibe of like a born-again Christian, but for propagandists. It's so weird. So apparently Biden and Blinken have trashed the ICC. I wonder why. I wonder what Biden said. I don't actually know. I don't know this. I don't know this drama. Thoughts on the ICC decision? Did they make a decision? Sunak condemns the arrest warrants. Oh no. Listen, what's Mahmoud Abbas saying? That's all I care about. You get what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know that much about it. Do you think you're a propagandist? You can make the argument that everyone's a propagandist. So in that sense, yeah, but in a meaningful sense, in the sense that you actually use it to distinguish a more egregious type of propaganda from just people advocating for their fucking based on their set of principles and biasing in that way, no. Like, who am I propagandizing for? I make Israelis angry half the time. I make fucking pro-Palestinians angry half the time. I make, yeah, I don't know. I probably make like radical trans people angry, but at the same time as making fucking conservatives angry about trans issues or anything. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely have biases, like, but I don't think I would ever. Like, I can never put myself in a position where I'm just like, I don't think I would ever ignore a fact or speak against it to suit a political cause. I don't know if other people do that intentionally or not, but I would never want to do that. And I don't think I ever do that. So, and even if I try to, with the community I've built, it'd be fucking impossible. Because everyone's got some objection to something I say, right? If I talk about, every time I read Benny Morris, on stream, we've got like Sundowner in here spamming the chat with fucking complaints and objections, and some of them are actually like fairly like pretty valid. At the same time, if I cover any like pro-Palestinian stuff, I've got like all the fucking Zio fucks in here doing the same thing. So it's kind of difficult. I would get caught out. I'd get noticed very quickly. Listen to Elon Pape then, groomer. Okay. What? Will you meet standing together? Yeah, I'm trying to. I would like to speak to standing together people. What is this?
Me and Loaderball was going to fight over this.
Everybody always talks about the Russia.
Why am I mentioning this Slugbug video?
Me and Loaderball was going to fight over this.
Everybody always talks about the Russia will not invade Ukraine moment. That's literally at this
point
years ago. Something that I immediately.
Oh no! We did it! We got multiple years away from your fuck up, and your argument now is just that it is plural years ago. Good job, buddy. Time heals all wounds.
But needed to stop a long time ago. Like, holy.
This is what happened.
Me and Loaderball was going to fight over this.
Wait, really? Loaderbox was in favor of this? Was he okay with this statement?
I don't think I was okay with that statement. I was okay with the principle of defending yourself, even if it's disproportionate against an aggressor, with lethal force if you don't have any other option. I was okay with that, yeah. And the example I used that pissed everyone the fuck off was a Palestinian defending his olive tree against settler violence. Like, it's just a tree, bro. It's just property. Nah, fuck off. That is a precious olive tree. And that guy got no other recourse. Sorry. Cope.
I don't know if it was that particular statement, but he genuinely agrees with Destiny's prescription of the Rittenhouse stuff.
Okay, let's game this out a little bit, because I disagree with Destiny massively here, but oh man, it's tough.
He's all about like the violent defense of property.
He's
like,
yeah. First of all, he's massively private property pilled, right? Just like Chris Speaks, beat a bitch over Bionicles, you know. Like it's
Well, that's where that conversation came from. Like
yeah,
that was
exactly.
the conversation I had with Loaderbox
yeah.
first.
Right. Okay. that makes sense. But yeah, look, like okay, so here's the issue. Okay, liberals don't like this kind of revolutionary. Oh, it's not revolutionary violence. This kind of violence. Okay, but that kind of violence can lead to positive outcomes. But unfortunately, it didn't and wouldn't because of the lack of effective organization on the left. So it's tough because principally, I'm not against violent rioting. But in the instance of BLM...
Also, I'm sorry, it's not just a private property argument. People try to make it a private property argument with BLM because they want to shit on the, like, liberals and right-wingers. But these are all the same people who would be absolutely perfectly fine with the olive tree lethal defense. I'm sorry, they would. You think anyone on the left would give a fuck about an old West Bank dude defending his fucking olive tree against a settler trying to burn it down with a gun? They would not give a shit. They would think it's based, even though it's a private property defense, right? Like, yeah. Because, yeah, it's just selective fucking morality. I don't know.
There just wasn't enough on the ground genuinely leftist and useful activism to turn that violence into anything useful. Now, if you were to say, for example, in a hypothetical... You know what? I'm going to talk about this movie I saw yesterday called Civil War. Okay, this is the plot of the movie Civil War. None of this happened in real life.
Yesterday, you're a liar.
Wiz, I'm trying to use it as a framing device so I can talk about violence without being cucked for it by... Jesus Christ, play along. Holy fuck. Anyway, so I saw a film called Civil War yesterday. I saw a film called... Is it out yet, by the way?
The difference is the Palestinian does not have other legal recourse. I mean, the thing is that people who have property, even in the United States or even in the UK, you don't necessarily have that much recourse either. How often do burglaries and robberies get solved in the United States or in the Western world? How often do people who are have faced their business getting hit by rioting damage get recourse. Like, some insurance doesn't cover all that. You can be in a position where you lose like a week of business. Even if you get your insurance, you're still fucked.
What?
Civil War.
Yeah, Captain America.
I always thought there was a distinction anyway in the left between like private and personal property, right? Maybe defending a Starbucks or some shit, like over the top, but your own house. What the fuck? You clearly don't live in America or own a business here. Do I need to own a business in America to know that some of those businesses that were burnt down in BLM are still boarded up? That not every business got fucking properly insured and had to close down? Am I wrong about that? Do you think everyone who suffered property damage in America got recourse for that? They got their insurance covered? I thought some people were completely fucked by that. I thought some businesses never recovered from that. The business I burned down is still closed. Jesus. Wow. How about look it up instead of assuming? No, that's what I remember looking up. I'm saying, okay, I'm not saying I thought and like, I just guessed it. I thought based on what I'd last seen. Fuck's sake. Ugh. While US companies have learned the hard way that their insurance doesn't cover business interruption related to the coronavirus, most policies emphatically do cover riot-related losses. Okay. They say most. $1 billion plus riot damage is most expensive in insurance history. Don't forget premiums go up. Let me see. Let me find the article about okay. But you still have 2 years after Kenosha protests, local businesses still trying to recover. Why? Oh, there's a little boarded up building 2 years later. Okay. Businesses say they're still trying to recover from the unrest that followed. Tony Garcia is the owner of Isla Del Mar. So he reflected on the past 2 years. He said, I'll never forget the moment when protesters came to his restaurant's door. We've still got holes on the wall. God. They broke windows. Could have been worse. We were devastated because of what happened. We lost about 50 or 60% of the business. Slowly now it's coming back, but not 100% like it's used to be. Hopes more can be done to protect businesses if this happens again. Seems like they're still open and operating. Okay. No, I don't know. I don't think people should just be expected. I don't think people should just be expected to take that damage, like because of aggressors, if they can do something about it.
Civil War? That's been out for
Oh,
ages.
oh my god, sure. Captain America Civil War. Anyway, so in that
Keep searching for something that fits your narrative. Okay, Blake, I'm just going to tell you this really slowly and patiently. I looked up something that I saw. I looked up something that I thought I remembered. It turns out that it seems that a lot of insurance companies did actually cover riot-based damage more so than coronavirus. I read that on stream, even though I looked at it off screen because I tend to Google stuff on the other screen and showed it to you anyway. Which is probably more honesty than you're going to get from any other fucking retarded commentators that you watch. So, like, what do you want me to do? I literally just did the fucking opposite of what you of what you accused me of. Fuck off. Jesus.
that movie, all right, 100 police stations get firebombed, all right, by rioters, okay, and the destruction and like fearfulness of the like them there's enough leftist organization on the ground in America that 100 police stations get fucking torched to the ground. Okay, all right. The riots are all very specifically targeting this institution that the riot is trying to get rid of. Anyway, if there's enough leftist organization on the ground, then that kind of violence is justified because you may actually get positive outcomes from it. In the case of BLM, it just wasn't organized enough, and so torching 1 or 2 police stations and breaking a bunch of targets and shit wasn't actually that effective. So Desi's correct in his assessment that the rioting and the violent rioting was unhelpful, but the reason he's against it is because he's got an overfixation on the defense of private property, and he's a liberal, which means that he would rather take violence of the state that's hidden and non-direct. He prefers indirect violence. Oh shit, what's that Martin Luther King quote? I'm gonna do the fucking letter from Birmingham jail meme. They would prefer like a absence
piece.
of justice that's non-violent than a violent justice or reckoning, whatever the fuck.
Wait,
it is.
what? Oh, he's inferring violence there, buddy. Smogbug. I don't think he said violence because obviously MLK was not pro-violence. Oh no. Did BLM really change anything? Breonna Taylor laws seemed to be good, didn't they? Oh no. Oh god. I don't think he would have said violence. Just my guess. We'll find out though. Let's do it on stream. Where is it when they say they would rather? It's something like about they would rather, isn't it? Negative peace, which is in the absence of tension. He said he's paraphrasing, obviously. Wait, does he say he's paraphrasing? Because obviously violence is like that letter, he's advocating against violence, but okay.
It's because he's got an overfixation on the defense of private property, and he's a liberal, which means that he would rather take violence of the state that's hidden and non-direct. He prefers indirect violence. Oh shit, what's that Martin Luther King quote?
Oh no, he doesn't.
I'm gonna do
Okay.
the fucking letter from Birmingham jail meme. They would prefer like a absence of justice that's non-violent than a violent justice or reckoning, whatever the fuck it is. Paraphrasing my friend of the stream, Martin Luther King Jr., friend of the stream, Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay. I love the Ransonas, the fucking flappy heads. It's so funny. Okay. What's this? Israel being fucking cringe about free press now. Uh-oh. Oh my god, the ad block is so powerful. What YouTubers were those? That was Smugbug and Wiz. I don't actually know what Wiz's stage name is, but he's called Wiz and fucking Wiz Walker. I don't know. Do you think Gaza counts as an occupied territory? I think it does now. Legally, did it count before they went in the ground invasion? I don't know. I've seen pretty strong arguments for both ends of it. If you want to make a political statement, you could say it is, obviously, because the amount of control that they have over it. But I don't know. Don't have a strong commitment either way. ICRC says yes. I know they do. But the standards of the, what do you call it? There's another standard that would suggest otherwise. Which one was it? Occupation law? Where the fuck? The Hague Convention. Is it them that have a different thing? Because what's the one that has like the list of 3 things? The 3 fucking dicks. It certainly is not. No one cares if it isn't. Of course it fucking is now. No one would say it's not occupied anymore. All right. Where? Oh my god! I thought I had a really long section on it. I feel like Red Cross opinion is pretty gold standard, isn't it? It's not just like a bunch of cunts saying we think this. On the one hand, this, on the one hand, that. Yeah, this is weird because I think the ICRC said the criteria to be met should generally mirror the ones used to determine the occupation's beginning, which it kind of does in Gaza, but in a big way it also doesn't. Where was they had a list of things that need to be checked, but I don't think it was ICRC that said it. Fuck. The Security Council resolutions don't say that. I know people try to claim that, but they just don't unless you are illiterate. Under the authority of a hostile enemy. Oh, is it the effective control test? Armed forces physically present without another party's consent, presence of foreign armed forces displacing the local sovereignty, and foreign forces established or can readily establish their own authority. I feel like this is the test, but who came up with this one? Where's the... I can't remember which institution has the effective control test. Who is it? Effective control test. Bro. Oh, I came up with that word. Okay. Oh, it's in quotation marks. Okay. And from the Hague Relations. Yeah, okay, you guys were right. So I think according to this, it doesn't seem to qualify, but I haven't actually read the ICRC's arguments for why it counts. Because I'm guessing they're using a different test. Are you prepared to defend yourself against unarmed children over there? No, you can. It's actually you know under our IHL, you're never allowed to attack unarmed teenagers. You can't do it. It's illegal. You can't do it. There can be, if there's one of them banging at your door, don't fucking do anything to them. Just a kid, a teenager. If there are 2 of them banging at your door, don't do anything. If there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what about there are 100 of them? Don't do anything. Can't do it. If there are 100 children, 14 years old, banging at your door, trying to break it down, and then 50 meters behind them are like 100 men and potential militants, and then behind them there are like 3,000 or 4,000 people, some of whom are edging towards you. You can't do anything. It's not allowed. It's illegal because if you do anything to defend yourself, some streamer will come on and fucking berate you over it and call you a child killer. I love this moral standard now. If only it's such a good message, isn't it? You can convince Hamas to get enough fucking. If Hamas just got like a bunch of fucking 15-year-olds to break the fence on October 7th. And they were the first ones in the paragliders, it would have been completely immoral to do anything back to them. Fuck me. Almost as if that's why they encourage kids to do that kind of shit. Jack-O-Lantern, thanks for tier 2 sub. What if they're trying to convert me to Mormonism? Surely it's okay to respond with lethal force then. You're on your own, bub. But I appreciate the sub for 7 months. That's really generous of you. We're bringing back the Children's Crusade. I wonder if Ismail Haniyeh had Children's Crusade in his mind when he was doing the Great March of Return and rewarding kids for going forward. I wonder. Are you pro-capitalism? I mean, it's all right for now. Probably shouldn't last forever. Probably are better ways out there. I'd like to see more workplace democracies. They seem nicer. They seem more just. Super capitalism, yeah. How are they anti-cap? In a Marxist sense, they kind of are because they erode the distinction between labor and capital. Like, you're not an employer or an employee exclusively. You're kind of both, right? You're a boss and a worker at the same time. Thinking what I want to do first. I want to do ICC? Probably ICC, yeah. I want to see what Blinkadink said about the ICC. Okay. Sometimes I forget you used to be a big Marx head. Yeah, I still like some bits of Marx. Why not? I don't like Marxists. They're really annoying and cringe, but... There's a CNN piece about this. I know he was interviewed by CNN, the ICC guy. What did Blinken actually do a public speech against the ICC, or did he... Is it just text? Because I read the text of his critiques of the ICC, but I don't know if he actually... was that a verbal thing? Did he... I can see a video here saying that he denounces the arrest warrant, but it's 40 seconds long. Did he really only speak for 40 seconds? Lornabox, do you think Yanis Varoufakis is onto something when he says we are sliding into techno-feudalism? I don't know. I mean, he probably is onto something if you're like that Connor Cassidy guy in chat or whatever the fuck, but to most people, probably not. I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about when he says that. I thought there was a Blinken thing. Where is it? Blinken condemns ICC. You think there's a moral equivalence between defending yourself against a mob of attackers and sniping someone on the other side of a wall? Yeah, Michael Crud, if you know anything about the actual layout of what was happening there, because did you even watch what I was talking about yesterday? I don't even, why would you make such an argument so fucking stupid if you know anything about how this border and how this fence works? Like, yeah, so you think I'm making a false equivalent between a mob of attackers versus people shooting people over a fence. What if people banging on your door is a mob of attackers? What exactly is this? What do we call this? Like, you realize that if this fence gets breached, you have less than 30 seconds before these guys are over the border, right? You have no idea how many of them are militants. You have no idea how many of them are armed. Like, how could you be so fucking dumb? Like, this is not just a regular old angry mob, like, throwing fucking stones at the Starbucks fucking HQ building. What? I don't know. And it's interesting because most of the Palestinians disagree with you as well, because most people did not decide to do this. You had tens of thousands of people at this protest, and the organizers initially on their fucking Facebook group saying, don't cross the road, don't go into the fucking buffer zone, don't go near the fence. They said that constantly. They were like, the guy who fucking came up with the idea was like, this is a different kind of activism we want to do. We don't want to do stone throwing. We don't want to do Molotov cocktails. We don't want to do fucking incendiary balloons and IEDs. And then, you know. Unfortunately, I've listened to you enough. I mean, clearly fucking not. Like, why would you say that? Anti-immigration. Yeah, that's actually what was going on here. This is a migration project, is what was happening here. When those guys from the Al-Qassam brigades were like fucking egging people on to move forwards, it was just migrant issues, yeah. That's what it is the other way around as well, right? Settlers in the West Bank, they're just migrants, bro. Chill. What, you don't like Jewish immigration? What are you, an ethnostater? Oh, God. I'm gonna kill myself. Oh, he was at the, oh, I know where Blinken was talking. He was talking with that incredible baldy pattern man. State Department dude. He doesn't know what analogy is. I do, and you made a really dumb one, sorry.
As the Secretary said in a statement a short time ago, the United States fundamentally rejects the announcement today from the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court that he is applying for arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials together with warrants for Hamas terrorists. There should be no equivalence between...
You have trouble answering questions without being sarcastic. I'll answer questions if they're not fucking stupid in a normal way. But I don't know if you've noticed, but quite a few of the people who ask me questions in this chat are not, first of all, they're not asking questions. They're being like, they're not doing curiosity. Well, okay.
Israel and Hamas. None.
Right, what's this guy saying?
As the Secretary said in a statement a short time ago, the United States fundamentally rejects the announcement today from the prosecutor of the International...
You could poke someone's eye out with this fucking hairline.
Criminal Court that he is applying for arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials together with warrants for Hamas terrorists.
He asked a legitimate hypothetical. Wait, sorry, which hypothetical was legitimate? Which one did I ignore? Count Dracula, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know why people are accusing me of like not engaging with shit. Like, you can come into my fucking Discord and talk to me for like 3 hours if you want to. You are more than welcome to talk. Just that none of you fucking do.
There should be no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. None. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that carried out the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust and is still holding dozens of innocent people hostage, including Americans. Furthermore, the United States has been clear since well before the current conflict that the ICC has no jurisdiction over this matter. The ICC was established by its state parties as a court of limited jurisdiction. These limits are rooted in principles of complementarity, which do not appear to have been applied here, amid the prosecutor's rush to seek these arrest warrants rather than allowing the Israeli legal system a full and timely opportunity to proceed. In other situations, the prosecutor deferred to national investigations and worked with states to allow them time to investigate. The prosecutor did not afford the same opportunity to Israel in this case, which has ongoing investigations into allegations against its personnel. There are also deeply troubling process questions. Despite not being a member of the court, Israel was prepared to cooperate with the prosecutor and had made that clear. In fact, the prosecutor himself was scheduled to visit Israel as early as next week to discuss the investigation and hear from the Israeli government. The prosecutor's staff was supposed to land in Israel today to coordinate the visit, and instead, Israel was informed that the prosecutor's staff didn't get on their flight around the same time that the prosecutor himself went on television to announce these charges. These circumstances call into question the legitimacy and credibility of this investigation. Finally, this decision does nothing to help and could jeopardize ongoing efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement that would get hostages out of Gaza and surge humanitarian assistance in. Those are the goals that the United States is pursuing and will continue to pursue despite these actions by the ICC prosecutor.
I wonder what happened. So the guy was going to visit Israel, but then missed his flight and then issued the request for arrest warrants. Okay. It's a little bit odd, but I guess they can do what makes them happy, I suppose. I can't tell if you're just learning about stuff to win arguments against people you dislike, or if you really believe this stuff. I feel like that critique is a lot more common than it used to be. Put it this way, when I was making content that really far left people liked, I did maybe about 3% of the research per topic compared to what I do now. There's a really weird thing though that people do, that people actually, they're so baffled by disagreement from, I think it's because like I've demonstrated quite easily, like clearly to anyone who knows, that I can push back on the worst excesses of pro-Israel advocacy fairly well, better than most people can on the other side. But I think people get really baffled by the idea that it's like, you agree with me on these things and you attack the people I don't like on these things in a good way, but you don't agree with me on these things, and that's like a huge problem. I don't know why. I wonder if it's because people, I think often people adopt their positions based on kind of like it's like joining a club. So usually when you adopt one or two positions, you imply all the rest of them. Like, because I know that most people who are left, because most people don't instinctively learn that much about Israel-Palestine unless it's in the news. Like, most people don't really, like, that's why most of these like far left commentators didn't really say that much about it before October 7th. It was a pretty quiet topic. But I imagine the way most people would have gone, I know this is what I used to do, is that they think, well, I'm left-wing. I know the left-wingers are pro-Palestine, so let's just look up the pro-Palestine arguments. And then I think that's how they start. I never watched your leftist commentary. Then why are you so baffled at the idea that I believe different things from you? I show you the process. It's like, it's publicly accessible, the process that I use to arrive at my conclusions. You can watch me reading things and commenting on things that I'm reading and engaging with things that I'm reading. Like, do you agree with the ICC prosecutor? I don't know enough about the charges, but for the most part, like, I think if he feels like there's good cause for both of them, like, I'm not surprised that, it's not surprising that Netanyahu and Gallant would have criminal charges, would have done enough to achieve those. And definitely not with Hamas, so why not? Would you say you disagree with some of your more left-wing videos from a couple of years ago? From like 2 or 3 years ago? Yeah, quite a bit. The more recent ones, maybe 1 or 2 disagreements, but not many, no. I'm baffled that people would justify the way Israel exists and behaves. Well, I don't know. Pick a specific topic on that issue. Come in Discord and talk about it with me, if you want. Like, or just keep watching some stuff and see if you figure out anything. I don't know. Just surely you recognize your chat seems to attract the worst characters these days in comparison when I started following you. Like what? Compared to when I had fucking tanky Hamas supporters in my audience? Compared to when I had the kind of people who like believe that there's no such thing as an Israeli civilian? Compared to when I used to have people who literally just fucking made like gulag jokes all day? Like those people? That's putting words in my mouth. What? No, that's not. That's what I didn't say you said that. I'm saying that's what my community used to be. What? How is that putting words in your mouth? That's true. That's a fact. That's the kind of people who used to be in this community. Like, and you're saying that the chat was better back then. Why is your Scottish accent so weak? Because people can't understand what I'm saying or maybe they could. I just used to, when I used to make video essays, when I started streaming, I just got really paranoid about people not understanding what I was saying. So I just kind of molded a bit. It was never that strong anyway, though. We also had Major League based. That's true. Hmm. Hmm. God damn it. The battle for Lonerbox's soul happening right in this chat right now. God. Is there any of your old videos you don't like a lot? No, I think they're mostly fine. If I really don't like a video for whatever reason, I'll just unlist it. There've been a couple, like the very, very early ones that I deleted like the first 3 that I ever made just because they were like bad audio, didn't like the sound of the way I was speaking. They didn't do very well anyway. And then there was a couple where I just thought the arguments weren't that good, so I took them down, but no, for the most part. I think the only video I've made that I think I very much disagree with the way that I did it was... Let me see. Which of these videos do I just really not like anymore? I think this one's fine. Just music analysis. This one, thought this one was good. This one... I think this one was good as well. It was a little bit too charitable to the narrative of the Communist Party because it was like their literature that I was reading to get this story about my hometown. This one, BLM protests. Probably wouldn't call it this. I think even this, when I even said the riots were bad and like I did the MLK quote, but properly, so that was fine. I'm happy with that. Happy with this one. The immigrants' wage suppression. Happy, more or less okay with this one. And maybe some critiques could be made of that one. This one, I liked about half of this one. This one good, 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 this one good. That one good. These ones are all good. This one might have been a bit scuffed. I was being lazy at this period. I think I like this one. Mostly like this one. Like that one, like these ones. This one could probably be improved. Could make these arguments better. Yeah, I don't... I feel like my section on this one, I probably wouldn't do it in this way. I think this was when I was like, this is when I used to believe a lot of the headline stuff, like the calorie counting Gaza diet shit. Yeah. Yeah. This one was a little bit too surface level on my end. I think Beast Process did really well though in this one for the apartheid argument, and especially in the West Bank. No, the big difference really is like rhetoric, word choice, and who I was attacking. So will you take it down? No. Why the fuck would I take down a video that I made, like, it says 1 year, but it's really more like 2 years ago, this one. It's closer to 2 years ago than it was to 1 year ago. Like, why would I take it down? I feel like if I change my positions on things, I can, like, still demonstrate the shifts or the growth or whatever. Yeah, why not? This one, I think I would maybe change my commentary on the Oslo, no, the Camp David Taba process. These ones, all fine. Yeah, I don't know. You think that was after my bad empanada debate? Well, yeah, because I knew he was going to misrepresent the fuck out of me to his audience. So I just thought, like, if you want to know my actual positions on Israel Palestine, like, here they are. And they are very, like, this is when I was advocating for the idea of, like, because there was that more liberal leaning Palestinian scholar who advocated for, like, a full right of return, but to the point that he was, like, mapping out old villages that had been abandoned. Not, like, built over, but abandoned. And the idea there was that rather than replacing the Jewish population, the Palestinians would just return and then, like, fill up the villages that were abandoned, and they can just build, like, where a village used to take like 500 people, maybe now it could take like 2,000 to make up for the loss. And it's like a very, like, binational, one state for everyone kind of thing. Like, yeah, this was kind of the idea that I pushed here. And Bad Empanada still called it liberal Zionism because it didn't involve kicking out Jews. Oh, God. But I've become a lot more pessimistic about that idea now, I will say. What would you change about your Oslo Taba talks? Oh, Arafat was a lot more bad faith than I thought he was in those talks. About the temple, about the response to the Clinton parameters, about the delays and all that, like, yeah. Did you still support the one-state solution, or are you moving towards two-state? I'm fairly agnostic on it. Like I've said way back as well. I think even in the Beast Process video, I made that argument as well. I said that the problem is that people don't really seem to agree on either of them over there in that region. Palestinians definitely don't agree on either of them. I think two-state makes more sense because it's got precedent. Like we've had agreements laid out before. There have been negotiation guidelines for it. Like they exist. Like it's what everyone talks about. So it just feels like it's the one that has the most credibility. The video Beast Process was very biased. I don't think he would ever deny that. He's very honest about his biases. Anyway. But I think the interesting thing is most of the time when I see Palestinians advocate for one binational state, I feel like that advocacy usually comes like the one binational state for democracy, like equal rights for all that shit. I feel like that advocacy always comes from people in the diaspora, like American Palestinians or like European Palestinians. I don't think it didn't seem to come very often from like people who actually live in the region. But I guess that's because most of the big spokespersons that people are fawning over right now are people who are from who are not from West Bank or Gaza, right? Like it's people who, yeah, it's people in the diaspora, like your Omar Badars and your fucking Muin Rabbani and all that. Yeah, those guys they don't live in the area. They live in fucking I'm literally 80 kilometers from Jerusalem. Sundowner, you're not a fucking public figure on the pro-Palestine. I'm sorry. Are you like? Is that the fucking roster for pro-Palestine advocacy on the left? Omar Badar, Muin Rabbani, fucking who's the other guy? Bassem Youssef and Sundowner. Okay, dude. Oh, we can dream. Maybe what? Okay. One day we'll see Sundowner and Pierce Morgan. Listen, we can dream. Oh God. Why does this? I need to stop engaging this shit. I feel like it never goes anywhere. I feel like it never actually sparks any kind of fucking conversation or curiosity. Just people like purely testing me on the fact that my positions are a bit different to what they used to be on some things. Like, fuck me. Oh. I'm just gonna ban people. I'm just gonna ban people more often. I can only tolerate so much of the fucking daily box inquisition. It's not even an inquisition. It's people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's people who haven't actually watched my content. They've just heard about it from other people. I feel like that's the vibe I get. Outside agitators. Yeah, man. Will you learn Arabic? I would have liked to, but don't know. That just seems like a whole shit show. What I really want to do, my plan today was to shit on Israeli propaganda. Oh God, and we're still doing it. I don't think you're all that interesting. I've been watching your research on one specific thing and disagreeing with your assessment of that. Okay, well, I don't find you that interesting either, but if you're here and you want to be here, you can be here. It's okay. If you want to leave, you can do that too. Okay. 1,000 viewers. Like the stream, guys. Doesn't cost you anything. Only if you find me interesting. Bro. Oh yeah, sorry. This Super Loves Tofu has to go. I'm sorry. I don't know why I allowed someone so fucking brain damaged to remain in this community for so long. God damn it. They literally just have a fucking cycle. Like, they just roll a dice and then one of the 5 talking points comes out and they're all shit. Okay. Okay. Right. Let's do some critiques of Ooh. You need to go full Lebanon, loner. Oh no. Where's my oh yeah, here. Don't want to lose that link. Okay. Where do I want to start with this? Okay, I'm going to write down some things just so I can know exactly how I want this to flow. Greater Israel. Maps. Not those kinds. Someone's in the waiting room. Oh, it's Yambus. Okay, quickly. This is not contention. This is not purity testing. Oh no. Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, what can I do for you?
Basically, do you know how did you watch like the latest DM that I wrote?
The latest what?
DM that I wrote you.
One more time.
I wrote you like the last message that I wrote to you
Let me see. It was
with the Bedouin politicians.
Yeah, gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, so like these politicians, they're like family of a friend of mine. And it's
Okay.
like, yeah, I mean, I asked him if that's like something that he would want to be like more known. And he said yes. I mean, he thought like it was a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're like very opinionated people and like very like educated and smart and everything. And they're really like afraid to express themselves over social media, over anything. So I mean, yesterday or the day before, the cops like beat up a parliament member in a demonstration and families of some kidnapped people. And when you're Arab, it's like worse. And yeah, that's like basically the terrible state of things under Ben Gvir's police.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I thought they would be like super interesting because they're like very involved in everything that's going on in the Negev, and there's like a very big problem with hostility between families and Bedouin people, and also like between crime in Jewish places and Bedouin places. And I mean, it's a really complex and interesting thing when you try to address it from within those communities. But then you can't criticize the government because of the situation,
Okay.
which is wild.
Yeah, obviously, like I don't want to do anything that puts anyone in trouble or anything. But yeah, I've noticed that comes up. Like when I've been in contact with people, anyone who, as soon as anyone's like either Arab or Bedouin or whatever, it's like there's always the extra hesitancy. Yeah, like they want to know more. They want like so makes sense.
Yeah, I told him that. I mean, it was just like the email phase. It's not like anything concrete, but I mean, I thought that they would be like more interesting than anyone else. I think that I put there, but yeah.
But they don't want to, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they would have wanted to, I would connect you like in a second.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I appreciate all the other kind of like efforts you've made for us. So yeah, I'll definitely make use of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So have a nice dream.
I will do. Take care.
Bye.
Whoa. All right. Okay. What was I going to talk about? All right. Grab the Israel maps. That one frame on the right is tilted. Yeah, people pay big bucks to do that and also to put it back, but no one's actually been willing to fork up to push it back, so it's just there. It's probably been tilting more over time, but who knows. Sorry, Durf, thanks for the 10 euros. I really appreciate that. Safe travels, Mr. Box. Oh, I really appreciate that. God damn. Contributing to the Travel Grift Fund, which you're all more than welcome to do, by the way. The Travel Grift Fund. The Emergency Rent, Mental Health, Grift, Travel, Shill, Juminati Fund. Yeah, that one. Maps. Okay. Okay. Listen, guys, we're going to do a critique of one line from a Benny Morris book, because we've done our little critiques of other authors. We've noticed bad citations or poor information in the likes of like Pape or Khalidi or just like basically any author. The fact is for every author who writes about Israel-Palestine, like you can find them being fairly wrong about at least a couple of things. And with Benny Morris, I found a pretty good one that's worth talking about. So you might be familiar with people talking about the concept of Greater Israel. You might have also heard people say things like Jordan is Palestine. Or you might have maybe once or twice seen a map that looks like this. So what does all that mean? Well, there is again with the Irgun. This is like a very old Irgun poster from the 1930s where it says Eretz Israel, and obviously it's both Palestine and what was then Transjordan. Basically their way of saying we won all of it. So, and maybe more recently, you've heard Greater Israel or this concept get whittled down to Israel is just all this, and Palestine is really just all this, like Jordan is Palestine. So they're saying we should have all this. That's why they call it Judea, Samaria, and then with here they call it Jordan or Palestine, right? Where does that come from? Well, one, it comes from the Israeli right and their desire to take as much land as they can from like the original mandate, but it also comes from a piece of bad history. The opinion that's given is based on a very poor understanding of deals and talks regarding borders, and a pretty bad understanding of the transgression of how these borders were formed. So how do you even start talking about this? I don't even. Okay, let's go with the Ben Shapiro one. Let's hear Ben Shapiro's version of the story and let's say why it's wrong, okay? Because he mentions it at the Balfour Declaration. Okay.
A threat, the Jews need some homeland to call their own. In 1917, Britain declares the Balfour Declaration. This says there will be a Jewish homeland in the area of Israel. The amount of land that was promised to the Jews was actually not just what is labeled Israel here, but also Jordan, which at this time was called Transjordan, which makes some sense in the sense that the Arab states around it were going to be Egypt, it was going to be Saudi Arabia, it was going to be Syria, it was going to be Lebanon. There are a bevy of Arab states that surround this entire region. In 1920,
you notice this map here actually contradicts what he's saying. This map here saying Balfour Declaration, but it says here British Mandate 1920 approximate, and here Zionist Organization Proposal to the Paris Conference 1919. The Balfour Declaration is 1917. So you can see here the proposal by the Zionists in 1919 is this, right? They want a little bit more of the Sinai Peninsula. They want a good large chunk of the east bank of the Jordan River, and they want up to here, which is up to the Litany River. So they want what's part of South Lebanon. Obviously, they don't get that. You end up with this map here instead, and Jordan over here. So how is Balfour promising all of this to the Jews in 1917 when this is the mandate from 1920 and this is the Paris Conference from 1919? Well, the answer is Balfour isn't promising them all of this. This map does not exist. This map, actually, the mandatory Palestine map as we understand it, didn't actually come into place until 1923. This part here, a good chunk of the Negev, was not part of Palestine. It wasn't considered part of Palestine. It was added in due to Zionist advocacy because they wanted the Gulf of Eilat. So, what really happened with these borders? Well, before Balfour and before the British decided what maps would be decided here for Palestine, the Ottoman map was actually very, very different to what we understand now. I can give you a few examples because the Ottoman map changed a lot. They constantly rearranged areas. I think this one is more or less accurate to just about the beginning of World War I. This one here, the independent Sanjak of Jerusalem, was fairly new. I think it came into place in like the late 1870s. But really what counts as Palestine, as we understand it, was you've got Acre, this I think can also be called Nablus, and then Jerusalem. These are like the areas here. And then see this part here, this is part of a separate area, right? So if you look at other examples of maps, I think there's one here, yeah, which is late Ottoman Palestine, the same kind of map. I think this is more or less drawn up in around 1899, give or take a few years. So at the time of World War I, there are quite a few deals happening. One, in 1916-15, is when more than 15, is when the British are making a deal with a few Arab kings in the Ottoman Empire to say that if you lead an uprising against the Ottoman Empire, we're going to give you a whole bunch of Arab land. They mention places like Syria. They mention places to the west of Syria. They mention around like the Hijaz, like the Arabian Peninsula, but they're very vague about Palestine. They mention like they kind of use a loophole to get away from offering Palestine. It's not really mentioned. It's kind of implied with the way that you interpret their their west of this area here, these like 4 Syrian towns, but it's basically left open for a loophole. You could argue deliberately, there's a dispute, whatever. Around the same time, about a year later, after making that promise to the Arabs, the British and the French draw up this agreement that they're going to split up the Middle East into 3 particular areas. You got area B and C. A, which they count as what you would call like Syria, more or less, is what they describe it as, is this like part here. And B for the British, which they count as, I think they would call it like Mesopotamia. But these are the 2 areas of influence. And at this time, they imagined what is more or less regarded as Palestine to be a international zone. And that's the border there. But when World War I ends, and you have what seems to be 2 contradictory promises to the Arabs and between the British and the French, well, that has to get resolved somehow based on these 2 agreements. And they do say that there's a bit of an undermining of the Arab agreement because the Arabs in their negotiations with McMahon in Britain, the McMahon-Hussein correspondence, they promised to raise an army of about 100,000 people to fight the Ottomans. In reality, they actually end up raising barely over 1,000 people. So there's a bit of leeway granted. There's a lot of like very ambiguous promises, a lot of loopholes, a lot of ambiguity around borders with dividing up the Ottoman Empire, which is no longer there. So they have another negotiation around 1919, 1920 with the League of Nations. And because we're entering a brave new world of self-determination and post-colonial thought and things like that, you've basically got the British and the French pushing for their imperial interests. And you've got people like Woodrow Wilson bringing their modern, liberal, trans, gay ideas of self-determination. And ultimately you have this compromise, which is called the mandate system, which is when we give France and Britain administrative control over these parts of these areas in exchange for the idea that they will ultimately be temporarily occupying them until they basically help these new nations form on their feet and then hand it back to them. That's like the idea. The mandate is supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to be there to sort of solidify your connections to the area and solidify trade routes and all that, but ultimately to prepare them for self-governance. Once you reach 1920, though, this is where you get the ambiguity, because what people refer to here when Ben Shapiro talks about this map is they're referring to an agreement in 1920, which takes place at the San Remo Conference, which is when they grant the initial mandates. So at San Remo, they grant to the British Palestine and Mesopotamia, which means Iraq. And to the French, they grant a mandate over Syria, which at that time includes Syria and Lebanon. Now, some people argue that Palestine at that time included Transjordan, because I guess you imply it from Area A or Area B. Well, it looks like this British mandate part would include Jordan, right? Now, there's a problem, though, is that this map, which is often seen as the San Remo Conference for the Jewish National Home, this map doesn't exist in 1920. It did not exist. You know it didn't exist because the Negev's not there. The Negev this was not granted to the area of mandatory Palestine until 1923. This map doesn't exist. And at Remo, they explicitly actually said, San Remo, there was no map. They literally say, without mentioning Transjordan once, and again, there's like a whole sort of 12-page document for the minutes that you can look at as well from San Remo, somewhere there anyway. They actually say the boundaries of said states will be determined and the selection of the mandatories made by the principal allied powers. They explicitly move the question of borders on to a different date. And even all that said, you can read the Balfour Declaration Contrary to what Ben Shapiro says, the Balfour Declaration does not say anything about all of the territory of Palestine. Even if you exclude Jordan, it doesn't say that. It just says a Jewish national home. It's very short. Much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object. It being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by the Jews in any other country. So again, in Palestine. There's never been any commitment to the idea of all of Palestine. It was going to be in Palestine, and it was going to be in a Palestine in 1917 that was understood to be more or less like this, or maybe if you're extending the borders a bit to the understood Ottoman boundaries, it's more like this, right? And it's only in this. So why people think it includes Jordan? It seems to be it's based on not that much at all, but we'll get to that. Enter Benny Morris. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go Benny Morris. I don't think, oh yeah, this is also, Ottoman maps are a fucking nightmare. Look at this. This is like an 1899 Ottoman administrative map. They moved regions around a lot, but this is like, you've got Nablus region, you've got the Acre region, you've got the Jerusalem area. But again, there's always a demarcation line across the Jordan River. Always. And unfortunately, because of events that happen a bit later, which I'll tell you about in a minute, people assumed that Palestine would include Jordan. The reason for that is that in 1921, 22, 23, eventually what was negotiated was the British Mandate for Palestine. That's what it was called. And the document, the British Mandate for Palestine, includes Palestine and at the borders as we understand it now, Mandate for Palestine, and Transjordan, this border here. It includes that, but it's called the Mandate for Palestine. But if you look at the map for when the border is finally decided, you get this. British Mandate for Palestine map. You've got the British Mandate for Palestine, which is the name of the document that grants it from 21 to 23, but you have Mandatory Palestine and Transjordan, which means Transjordan is already distinct from Palestine, even though the whole document is called the Mandate for Palestine. But unfortunately, I think it's really just because of this semantic thing, that people have reinvented the sort of trajectory that this happened on to assume that at one point, Jordan was part of Palestine, and therefore part of the British Mandate for Palestine included Jordan, which means even if you interpret the Balfour Declaration to mean part of Palestine, they would suggest that it should just mean this, all of it, all of here to here, and then Jordan for the Arabs here to like here. That's just not really what happened. But even it seems that of all the people that made this mistake, even Benny Morris mentions it. He says here, we'll go from the earlier paragraph for context. Britain and France rejected the Congress's resolutions, and in April 1920, at the San Remo Conference, the Allied powers formally granted France and Britain mandates, respectively, over Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine and Iraq. The Arabs immediately condemned these decisions as a betrayal of promises of independence, and Faisal's followers embarked on guerrilla raids against the French in Lebanon. Ignoring Faisal's last-minute unconditional surrender, the French took Damascus on July 26th. Faisal was exiled and later was declared King of Iraq, where he ruled under the British tutelage until his death in 1933. France was unhappy with Britain's control of Palestine, which in 1920 included Transjordan, from which pro-Faisal raiders continuously harassed the French in Syria. Now, why does Benny Morris say this? He's a trusted source. Righteous Victims is not really an academic historian book because it's mostly from secondary sources, although he does draw from like pretty reputable sources. I managed to find the footnote that this comes from. If you look down, the footnote doesn't come until way at the end of this paragraph with a quote, footnote 107. So it could be that the footnote here mentions this part as well as all this. So I found the footnote 107, and it links to this author called Wasserstein, Bernard Wasserstein from 1991, Kurds on to Balfour, who are a British administrator to Balfour in 1919. Now, I could find this original book, but it costs like £150, and I couldn't find a PDF of it. So that book is off the table, even though it seems to be like this book in particular, this author, is Benny Morris's go-to for the British Mandate period. So now I'm like, fuck, how do I find this out? And as it happens, I found the author had written another book called Israelis and Palestinians, Why Can't They Stop? He wrote this book about 10 years later. And because he is the go-to author on this mandate period, sort of 1917 to 1930s, 40s, he actually writes about that period, the 1920s. And he writes specifically about this idea of Greater Israel. So I guess we should just read this and see where the confusion comes from. So, was Palestine partitioned in 1921 to 2? Oh, sorry, this is also the reason people say Palestine was partitioned. This is the argument that's given by the Jewish Virtual Library, is they will argue that there was a decision made in 1921-22 involving Churchill to split Palestine down the middle here, down the Jordan River. The context that this happened in was when King Faisal, who was part of the agreement to fight the Ottomans, tries to take over Syria. He occupies Syria. He says this is ours against the French. And this is also when you have like the first big anti-Zionist revolt in Palestine, 1920, when they chant like Palestine is ours, the Jews are our dogs. And at this time, there's like a riot and like 5 Jewish people die. And the Arab nationalists at this point are expecting Palestine, most of them are expecting it to become part of Greater Syria under Faisal. So they're emboldened by Faisal taking over Syria. But the French get really angry at Faisal. They come in, basically kick him out with their superior army. And this is where you get the problem, is that at this time, the British start asking, wait, the French just marched their troops into here. Now, wait, what happens to Jordan? They literally do that. Like, they literally ask what happens to Jordan. They're like, are the French going to come all the way down here? Because at this point, between 1920 and 21-22, the British are administering this side of the Jordan River. They're not doing that much at all here. They don't have a military presence here. They're not administering the Jordan area because even they don't actually know what's happening with Jordan. They are worried about the French trying to come down here and establish control, and that's why they start talking about what's going to be the future of Jordan. They don't actually know. So it completely betrays the idea that Palestine included Jordan in 1920 because the British administration from 1920 didn't go past the river for the most part. I don't think it might have gone maybe along the bank, but as far as I know, it didn't include Jordan. So there's ambiguity there. So this person here, I think, gives a really good explanation of what actually happened. So he says, also, funny story about Faisal. When he is kicked out of Syria by the French, the British 2 years later or 3 years later needed someone to administer Iraq. So what the British did was they needed a guy. Faisal needed a country to rule, apparently. So they just chose him. They just took the guy who failed at taking over Syria and just put him in Iraq and made him the king. They literally just did imperial musical chairs with this guy. And whilst and just before that's happening, Faisal's brother, Hussein, is starting to eye up Jordan because there's a vacuum here. People don't know what's happening with it. But anyway, here's what happens. Was Palestine partitioned in 1921-22? The text of the Balfour Declaration of 2nd November 1917 refers to Palestine, but nowhere defines its limits. Abdullah, not Hussein. Oh, I'm sorry, Abdullah. I'm stupid. Anyway, yeah, King Abdullah, yeah. Hashemite, yeah. All right. When Britain occupied the country in the course of the following 11 months, she established a military occupation regime for the whole of the Levant under British control and divided it, like Gaul, into 3 parts. Occupied enemy territory, north, the former Sanjak of Beirut, covering much of what is today Lebanon, was placed under French military rule. OETA east, consisting of the former Vilayet of Damascus, corresponding more or less to modern Syria, placed under an Arab administration headed by Emir Faisal, and OETA south, the former Sanjaks of Accra and Nablus, and the independent Sanjak of Jerusalem. Roughly what became British Mandatory Palestine, except for the Negev Desert, was placed right under direct British military rule. See, the Negev is later. Until 1923, when an Anglo-French convention settled the northern borders of Palestine and a conclusive peace treaty was signed with Turkey, the question of the future northern and eastern boundaries of the country and of the Jewish national home remained open. The Egypt-Palestine border, which had been agreed before the First World War. At the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, the Zionists pressed hard for the inclusion in Palestine of the sources of the Jordan River in southern Lebanon. They also urged that the eastern border of the country be set east of the river so as to include a 25-mile wide strip of territory in Transjordan. The most forceful exponent of the Zionist proposal was the future British High Commissioner Herbert Samuel, at that time working closely with the Zionist organization. So again, Ben Shapiro is already wrong. Because how can the Balfour Declaration promise Palestine, which includes Jordan, if in 1919, 2 years after the Balfour Declaration, are the Zionists asking for parts of Jordan to be in Palestine? Why are they doing that? Right? It doesn't make any sense. In a letter to the Foreign Office in June 1919, Samuel stressed that for the maintenance of a population in Palestine, numerous enough to support the structure of a modern state, the fertile territory east of Jordan proposed to be included within the boundaries is also essential. The Zionists received some influential support. Balfour, for example, wrote, "In determining the Palestinian frontiers, the main thing to keep in mind is to make a Zionist policy possible by giving the fullest scope to economic development in Palestine. Thus, the northern frontier should give to Palestine a full command of the water power which geographically belongs to Palestine and not to Syria, while the eastern frontier should be so drawn as to give the widest scope to agricultural development on the left bank of the Jordan, consistent with leaving the Hejaz Railway, which ran north-south about 30 miles east of the Jordan, completely in Arab possession." Yet, in spite of this powerful advocacy, no decision on the issue was taken at that stage. In April 1920, when the San Remo Conference assigned the mandate for Palestine to Great Britain, the question of borders was raised in discussions among the members of the Supreme Council, consisting of delegates of the USA, the British Empire, France, Italy, and Japan. The British and French debated the issue acrimoniously. The British Prime Minister, David Lloyd George, referred delegates to the ablest book on Palestine which had ever been written, George Adam Smith's Historical Geography of the Holy Land. In a telegram to the Foreign Office summarizing the conclusions of the conference, the Foreign Secretary, Lord Curzon, stated, "The boundaries will not be defined in peace treaty, but are to be determined at a later date by principal Allied powers." When Samuel set up the civil mandatory government in mid-1920, he was explicitly instructed by Curzon that his jurisdiction did not include Transjordan. Following the French occupation of Damascus in 1920, the French, acting in accordance with their wartime agreements with Britain, refrained from extending their rule south into Transjordan. That autumn, Emir Faisal's brother, Abdullah, led a band of armed men north from the Hejaz into Transjordan and threatened to attack Syria and vindicate the Hashemites' right to overlordship there. Samuel seized the opportunity to press the case for British control. He succeeded. In March 1921, the Colonial Secretary Winston Churchill visited the Middle East and endorsed an arrangement whereby Transjordan would be added to the Palestine Mandate with Abdullah as its emir under the authority of the High Commissioner, and with the condition that the Jewish national home provisions of the Palestine Mandate would not apply there. Therefore, Palestine was not partitioned in 1921-22. Jordan was not excised, but on the contrary, added to the mandatory area. Zionism was barred from seeking to expand there, but the Balfour Declaration had never previously applied the area to the east of the Jordan. Why is this important? Because the myth of Palestine's first partition has become the part of the concept of Greater Israel and of the ideology of Jabotinsky's revisionist Zionist movement. Long after the establishment of Israel, the revisionist political heirs, the Herut Party, the core element in what became the Likud, led by Menachem Begin, still dreamed of a Jewish state that would include Transjordan. Their phrase was, "The Jordan has two banks. One is ours, and the other two. Most revisionists conveniently forgot that their ideological hero, Jabotinsky, as a member of the Zionist executive, endorsed the arrangements in 1922 that explicitly prohibited Jewish settlement in Transjordan. More recently, advocates of Israeli annexation of the West Bank have asserted that the proper home of the Palestinian Arabs are in Transjordan. Hence the slogan, Jordan is Palestine. That's why when you talk to like fairly right-wing Zionists about compromise, some of them actually believe that the compromise is this becomes Israel and this becomes Jordan, because they say that they're giving up half of what was promised to them by the British. It's just wrong. And even like the Jewish Virtual Library, which I don't think is a horrible source, like they do have information on there that I think is correct, but this, when you look San Remo Conference map 1920, the first thing you get is the Jewish Virtual Library with this map, and it's just wrong. It's just a fake map. This map never existed in 1920. It was never drawn. And also L for Benny Morris. I don't even think his footnote mentions this, because the author who is footnoted first after this quote disagrees with it clearly. Unless he changed his mind, but he doesn't seem to have. And I guess what happens here is that first of all, it's not unusual for a historian to not footnote everything, because some things are just truisms. Like, I don't think you need to footnote the idea that Hitler was the leader of the Nazi party in 1938, right? Like, yeah, you don't need to do that. But yeah, I guess this was just a truism that Benny Morris believed, I guess. So yeah, back in 2001 or whenever he finished this book. So yeah, got a little L there for Benny Morris, and fat L for Ben Jabino. I feel like Ben's is worse because he literally shows a picture of a map that contradicts what he's saying. But anyway, there we go. That is the history of the concept of Greater Israel and whether or not Palestine is Jordan. Well done, guys. Now, let's spend the next 2 weeks fighting with leftists who were impressed by that video. I'm sorry. Okay. That's a joke. To be honest, for anything other than Israeli archives and the Nakba, I don't believe Morris to be any better than other mainstream historians. I don't know enough to say. Like, he doesn't seem to know that much at all about anything post 2000. He doesn't, like, Great March of Return, when Finkelstein brought that up, Benny Morris was just like, I don't know, like, maybe I don't think the IDF were, they might have been immoral, but if what you're saying is true, it seems like they definitely, yeah, he just doesn't seem to know, yeah. Same with like Cast Lead or Protective Edge and shit, yeah. But I guess he doesn't really care about all that. Like, he cares about, his newest book is going to be about the 48 massacres, like all of them, so. Destiny said he's a 20th century guy. Yeah, but apparently he might also be more just like a 48 guy. Unless that's just like I don't know. I haven't seen him make that many more mistakes. Like, that's probably the biggest mistake I've seen him make. Because it's actually that mistake about San Remo including fucking Jordan. That's probably the biggest and most consequential mistake I've seen him make, because it serves the like very right-wing Zionist idea that still predominates, right? But anyway. So, hey, Olive, there you go. There's your segment, all right? There's your cut. Oh, someone's actually found the original. No, wait, that's the book I've got. Whoever sent me that in DMs. I'm sorry, that's the book I've got. The one I couldn't find was from 1991. Here. Have you raised this with Benny Morris? What, one sentence in a book that he wrote 20 years ago? No, I will. Maybe I'll do it when I meet him. I'll ambush him. I'm gonna go to Israel just to tell Benny that he was wrong about this one thing on this page. Fucking smash. No, this was the book that I couldn't find. The British and Palestine Mandatory Government from 1917 to 29. This is Benny Morris's like go-to source, it seems, for this period. So I guess this guy's quite reputable on it. But he even doesn't seem to think that Palestine ever included Jordan in terms of British arrangements. Ask him for the book, yeah. But this is the book that he footnotes for that part, and the footnote, it's from apparently page 38. So one of you dickheads can go find it. I'm not going to. It might not even be there, because it seems to be that he only footnoted a quote, not the entire paragraph. Because that's how it works usually, yeah. Remember to bring a big drill in case Benny tries to run you over with a tunnel boring tank. Okay. Listen, I'll think about it. Okay. Quillette. Benny Morris. Oh, he wrote a Quillette article. Why is it always fucking Quillette? Or is this the same? Because I've seen Quillette had a Benny Morris piece before, but it was just him in an interview, and they just transcribed it and made it look like it was an article that he'd written for them. So we see what he has actually said. Like, this is only yesterday he put this out. I guess if we're on Benny Morris, why not? Boomer Morris, Lenny Loris. Oh, God. Benny should adopt Destiny so he can gain Israeli citizenship. Yeah, well. He addresses current issues, and it's intriguing how he frames it. It might be. It's so interesting how he manages to separate his historian fucking suit from his political suit, though. It's so weird, yeah. But there we go. I've got my probably that's my strongest critique of anything I've seen Benny Morris write in his history stuff. There's probably more. There will be more. But yeah, we got him. I hope he hasn't changed his mind since then, so that we actually have something to contend with. It's possibly got it wrong in one book, but right in the others. Which other books does Benny Morris talk about the Mandate period and the Remo Conference? Does he? You're speaking to him when you go to Israel. Seems so. Seems so. I don't want to... I'll read this and then I'll watch the ICC guy talking to CNN. We do it that way? Are you talking to Ben Ami? Seems so. We might have an Arab Knesset member, an ex-Arab Knesset member. We might have an Arab queer activist, I think. We got some candidates. Netanyahu. How much do I want to say? Probably not. Let's put it that way. Okay. If you had baby, what would you ask him? I'd ask him what the fuck he wants. That's what I'd ask him. I'd be like, mate, what do you want the Palestinians to do? Do you want them to live as second-class citizens in an Israeli state? Do you want to kick them out? Do you want them to live in a fucking Bantustan? Like, what do you want? Like, I don't know, just fucking say what you want so people can understand what they're contending with. Because right now, it just seems to be like this constant, like, kicking the can down the road. We'll call it Judea Samaria. We'll say, we have no interest in, we're a democracy. We have no interest in unequal. Like, I don't know. I just want to know what the fuck he wants. Like, and I want him to be a man about it instead of... And maybe also ask him about his career as a philanderer. I don't know. And how does it feel to be the security guy who presided over the worst security failure in Israeli history? I would make him leave. I would not. I couldn't handle it. Fuck that guy. What a subhuman cunt. Anyway. You should read Ben Ami's book before you interview him. It's on the 21st century peace process. Yeah, I want to... Oh, God. I also... You know what I want to do? There's a bunch of films that I wanted to watch before I go as well. I want to watch Farha, the one about 48. I want to watch Walt with Bashir. I want to... I want to watch... what do you call it? The rest of Fauda? Actually, are people on Kick allowed to watch films and TV? They are, aren't they? I wonder if when I'm at fucking if I'm in Miami, if I want to go to Dustin's and watch and see if he wants to watch Fauda with me on stream. Or one of the films, Farha, or fucking the other one, Waltz with Bashir. Because apparently if you can do it on Kick, why not? Right. In the ending of Fauda, they implement a two-state solution. Shut the fuck. No, they don't. No, they fucking don't. Stop. Don't spoil... If anyone spoils the end of Fauda for me, I'll fucking kill you. No, stop. Stop in a video game. Ooh. Please keep this in mind when you meet Benny. Keep what in mind? What do I not want to address? Did you try to link something? Do you wish you had more time to prep, or do you feel well-equipped? You can always be more well-equipped, but I'm pretty well-equipped. It won't let me link. What are you trying to link? Can I guess? Are you trying to link the video of him saying he'd rather be racist than boring? Is that what you want me to see? You know, I understand full well that Benny Morris is bigoted against Arabs, and I am an Arab in some capacity, right? I understand that. Like, it's just... The way I see it is, for people who live in that region, whether it's Israeli Jews or people in the West Bank or Mizrahi Jews or people in Gaza, I feel like there's a level of bigotry that each of those people can have that's fairly understandable. Like, but you know. I would like to ask him if it colors his political takes, though. If he's any good at separating. You're like Hassan, you're white when you want to and Arab when you want to. Yep. Depends on who I'm trying to annoy, Scarlett. I know this. Good. I'm glad. How will you address him on that point? It's a pretty glaring point of concern for any serious discussion on Zionism. What? The fact that Benny Morris is bigoted? Like, yeah? What are examples of him being bigoted? There's quite a few quotes about him saying things like they should be treated like, if they're going to act like animals, they should be treated like animals or caged like animals, like we're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. He's and also him just saying that he'd rather be racist than boring. Like, oh God. The Marauders. Marauders. Anyway. Anyway. Isn't this because of the Second Intifada, whereas in his books he talks very valiantly about the first one? Yeah, he's very admirable of the First Intifada, like, or very admiring of the First Intifada in his Righteous Victims book. Also, but the Second Intifada was just different, right? The Second Intifada was like suicide bombings and shit like that, like constantly in within Israeli territory. So like, I can see why. Like, I feel that way. I feel like admiration for like parts of the First Intifada and large parts of it actually, compared to the second, which was just a fucking shit show. Yeah. Did time for refusing to serve during the First Intifada? Yeah, true. Okay, let's read this. The war in Gaza, no end in sight. After 7 months of campaigning, Israel's most pressing problem remains the continued existence, indeed, resilience of Hamas. Oh, interesting. Captivating headline. Let's go. Maybe a third one to balance it out. Bro, what if? I wonder if Palestinians have any feeling about that. Like the ones who actually live in the West Bank or Gaza. I wonder if they have any opinions on, like, if they have a preference for the first or second one as a, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be like what they prefer now is like the more approaching conventional warfare, right? Like rockets and guns and shit. Yeah. Israel's offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, now in its 8th month following the Islamist savage invasion of southern Israel on 7th of October, appears to have gone badly wrong both militarily and politically, and there's no end in sight. Wait, hang on. Savage invasion. Let's just see. He doesn't say marauders. Okay. All right. That's a shame. Israel, a small country with a small Jewish population and small military-industrial base, is not built for long wars. Since 1948, its wars have been remarkably short. A week in 56, 6 days in 67, 18 days in 1973. Even the unsuccessful mini-war with Lebanon's Hezbollah in 2006 lasted only a month. This time around, the war feels endless. What did I say? Me and Benny Morris, same page. Me and Benny Morris like that, right? The unsuccessful. Fuck you. Hezbollah got their entire military infrastructure destroyed. 1 million displaced. Few thousand dead. But we won, okay? Because Nasrallah did not die. Anyway. True, at the start of the campaign in Gaza, the heads of the Israeli defense establishment cautioned the cabinet and public not to expect a quick fix and warned that the war would be likely take many months, perhaps dragging on for a year or more before its main objective was achieved, the destruction of Hamas as a military and governing organization. It's a fucking joke, dickhead. Like, I'm obviously not... Nonetheless, as Israel celebrated 76 years of independence on the 14th of May, an atmosphere of acute despondency blanketed the nation. Everywhere, both the public and the government were confronted by posters displaying the faces of the 100 or so Israeli hostages still in Hamas's hands in Gaza. And the past week afforded a spate of incidents highlighting both the IDF's failures and the political hazards, even quagmires, that seemingly lie ahead. 5 IDF soldiers were killed in the Zitoun neighborhood of Gaza City at the northern end of the Strip, a neighborhood already ostensibly cleansed of Islamist fighters by the IDF twice since November 2023, and salvos of rockets fired by Hamas hit the relatively distant Israeli cities of Ashkelon and Beersheba for the first time in months. Together, these incidents demonstrated that despite the thrashing that Hamas has undoubtedly received, the Islamist organization is still standing and able to project power and lethality from its last major stronghold, the city of Rafah at the southern end of the Strip, on the Israel-Egypt border, as well as from regrouping Hamas units at the northern end of the Strip. On the international relations front, acute problems have emerged between Israel and the United States, and between Israel and Egypt, with whom Israel signed a peace treaty back in 1979, the first ever to be signed between the Jewish and Arab states. American officials, including President Joe Biden, have for weeks warned Israel not to invade Rafah without ensuring adequate protection and sustained humanitarian aid for the city's hundreds of thousands of permanent residents and the more than 1 million refugees both inside and around the city, who have fled there from battles in the northern part of the Strip. Speaking on camera last week, Biden announced that Washington had suspended a shipment of bombs to Israel and implicitly threatened to impose a wider arms embargo, should Israel proceed with its much heralded intention to conquer the city. The announcement marked a radical shift in American administration policy, under pressure from the progressive wing of the Democrat Party and the students sowing chaos and anti-Israel and anti-Semitic hatred at university campuses around the United States and Europe. Democratic Party, sorry. Forget that they're called that sometimes. In the days following October 7th, wait, hang on. I'm so sorry, guys. I need to call off stream and be back in an hour. Bye.